Let's talk about innovation, not legacy, Travis declared in the boardroom, fixing his eyes right on me as if the others didn't matter. My name is Henry Caldwell, 45, and up until 10 minutes ago, I was the senior project director at Caldwell & Company. Construction, based in Omaha, Nebraska. My grandfather launched it with just grit and 2 old trucks. My father molded it into a respected operation. And I transformed it into the 3rd biggest commercial construction firm across 3 states. Travis's words didn't shake me. I gave him a nod, leaned back slightly in my chair, and let a faint smile play on my lips. The air in the room turned still. Uncle Joe stared blankly at the table. Martha from finance started fiddling with her pen. No one met my eyes, except Travis. He had that smug, self-satisfied grin, like he'd just won something big. Interesting move, I finally said. Best of luck. Then I rose, smoothed out my suit, and exited the room in silence. They probably expected me to fight it to yell, or make a scene, or remind everyone that I was the one who landed the Meridian Tower project when we were still too small to handle it, or that I was the one who got us through 2008 when half our competitors went under, or that I was the one who personally managed every relationship with our top 5 clients. But that would have been giving Travis exactly what he wanted a chance to play, the calm, rational businessman against his emotional older brother. So instead, I just walked in the parking lot. I stood next to my truck for a minute, 22 years with the family business, started hauling lumber when I was 23. Fresh out of college with a business degree, nobody respected until I used it to triple our profits. Worked 6 days a week for most of my 30s, missed vacations, missed my daughter's swim meets, missed my first marriage, all for Caldwell & Sons. I pulled out my phone and looked at the email I'd received yesterday from Ben Harding at Crestwell Properties, the one confirming they were moving forward with JW Buildworks instead of Henry & Sons for their new $3.2 million office complex. My new company, my clients. Travis didn't know it yet, but he just fired the only thing keeping Caldwell & Sons relevant to our biggest customers. He'd been so busy with the banks and the investors and the fancy strategy consultants. He hadn't noticed that every major project for the last decade succeeded because of the relationships I built. And now those relationships were coming with me. I got in my truck and drove away from Caldwell & Sons for the last time. Something told me Travis would be calling very soon. I grew up watching my father build Caldwell & Sons. He'd come home with dirt under his nails and pride in his eyes, talking about pouring foundations that would last generations. Travis and I would sit at the kitchen table listening to him tell stories about jobs won and lost, lessons learned. He'd always end the same way. Someday, you boys will run this together. Travis is 4 years younger than me, was always the smarter one, at least on paper. Private school, fancy business program, at Northwestern internships with investment firms in Chicago. I stayed local state university straight into the family business. My father never said it, but I knew he was grooming Travis for the corner office, while I learned the business from the ground up. For years it worked. I handled the projects, the clients, the actual building. Travis handled the money, the growth strategy, the future. We were a good team. At least I thought we were. The crack started about 3 years ago. Small things at first. Travis began excluding me from meetings with the board. Just financial stuff. Henry, you'd be bored. He hired consultants without telling me, brought in new project managers who reported to him. Not me. Then he started going to client meetings alone. Meetings I'd always handled. When I asked about it, he'd say they specifically requested me. But when I'd check in with those same clients later, they'd be confused. We asked for you. Jake, your brother said you were too busy? Last year, when our father announced his retirement, I already knew what was coming. The board meeting where they named Travis. CEO was just a formality. I sat there nodding, shaking hands, playing my part. What nobody knew was that I'd already seen the writing on the wall. For the past 8 months, I'd been building something on the side. Nothing illegal. Nothing that violated my contract. Just conversations with our top clients about what would happen if I ever left. You're the only reason we work with Caldwell. Ben Harding from Crestwell had told me over beers one night. If you go somewhere else, we go with you. Simple as that, I'd heard. The same from the others. Tanner at Riverview Development, Sophia at Blackstone Commercial, James at Westfield Properties Victor, at Union Square Holdings. Together, they represented over 60% of our annual revenue. I filed the LLC paperwork for JW Buildwork 6 months ago, secured a line of credit, found office space, started discreetly talking to our best foremen and project managers. I wasn't stealing. I was preparing. There's a difference. Travis was so focused on becoming CEO, he never noticed his foundation was crumbling. The morning after I was fired, I went to the small office I'd rented on the west side of town. Nothing fancy, just a reception area and 2 private offices above an accountant's practice. The sign on the door still had the previous tenant's name. I hadn't bothered changing it yet. I'd barely settled in when my phone rang. Travis, I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again and again. Finally, I answered. Henry. What the hell's going on? His voice had that high pitch it always got when he was panicking. Ben Harding just called to say Crestwell is pulling all their projects from us. Says they've signed with someone else. Someone called JW Buildworks. Sounds like you've got a problem. I said, did you do this? Is this you? I secured my future just like you did. He was quiet for a moment. Then, these are Caldwell and Sons clients. They belong to the company. No Travis. They were my clients. I built those relationships. I earned their trust. You thought you were firing a project director yesterday, but you were actually firing the only person those clients actually wanted to work with. This isn't legal. We'll sue. Go ahead. My lawyer assures me I've done nothing wrong. I didn't solicit them while employed. I didn't take proprietary information. I didn't violate any non-compete because I never signed one. I'm just a builder who's now building somewhere else, and my clients are following me. Another long pause. I could almost hear him thinking, calculating, realizing just how badly he'd misjudged the situation. Henry, come on. We're brothers. We can work this out. That's when something shifted inside me. Not anger, something colder, something final. We were brothers yesterday too. Didn't stop you from humiliating me in front of the entire board. That was business, not personal. I almost laughed. The family name is on the building, Travis. It's all personal. Look, I made a mistake. Come back. We'll figure it out together. I looked down at my desk, where I'd spread out the preliminary plans for the Crestwell project. My project now. No, I said simply, I'm good where I am. Henry, you don't understand. It's not just Crestwell Riverview called too. And Blackstone. They're all saying the same thing. Now, I did laugh. I understand perfectly. You're calling because you're in trouble, not because you want me back. There's a difference. Dad's going to be furious. That stung, but I pushed past it. He wanted us to run the company together. That was your choice to make, not mine. The silence on the other end stretched out. When Travis spoke again, his voice was different, smaller. What do you want? Money. A board seat, name it. I don't want anything from you. I've already got what I need. These clients represent over 60% of our annual revenue. The bank will call our loans if we lose them all at once. Like I said, I answered, sounds like you've got a problem. Then I hung up. I sat there for a long time afterward, staring at the phone. I didn't feel the satisfaction I'd expected. Just a hollow sort of finality. The last tie cut, the last bridge burned. I was completely on my own now, and strangely, it felt right. 3 days after I was fired, Uncle Pete showed up at my temporary office. He'd been Dad's right-hand man for 30 years before semi-retiring to a board position. He found me reviewing resumes of project managers I was trying to recruit. Nice place, he said, looking around at the bare walls and rented furniture. Very startup. It's temporary. I said, not getting up. What do you want, Pete? He sighed and sat down across from me. The board called an emergency meeting yesterday. Travis told us what you did. What I did. Interesting way to frame it. He says, you stole our biggest clients. Says, You've been planning this for months. I put down the resume I'd been reading. I built relationships with those clients for years. I delivered their projects on time and under budget. I earned their loyalty. Travis fired me. They followed me. End of story. Uncle Pete leaned forward. The board is talking about suing you, Henry. They're serious. Let them. My lawyer says I'm clean. This isn't just about what's legal. It's about what's right. Your father built that company for both of you. That landed harder than I wanted to admit. Dad wanted us to run it together. Travis made a different choice. He made a mistake. He admits that a mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. He ambushed me in a board meeting after months of pushing me out. That's a strategy, not a mistake. Uncle Pete rubbed his face. The company's in trouble. Jake, real trouble. The bank is getting nervous about our financing without those big projects on the books. I know exactly what position the company's in. I ran the operations for 15 years. Then this could tank the whole thing. Everything your father built. Everything you built. For the first time, a crack appeared in my certainty. So what is it you want from me? I asked. Return, he said. Rebuild what we lost. Bring the clients home. The board's open to changes. We could revise the leadership model. Co-CEOs. You and Travis side by side. The offer hung in the air like smoke. For a heartbeat, I almost said yes. But then I saw Travis again. Smug, cold, victorious. No, I said, that won't work. Uncle Pete stood up suddenly angry. Damn it, Henry. This is your family. Travis should have thought about that before he fired me. Your father is devastated. He's talking about coming out of retirement to fix this mess. Another twist of the knife. Dad was 72 heart problems. Doctor's orders to take it easy. Tell Dad to stay home. This isn't his problem to fix. Uncle Pete headed for the door, then turned back. The board meeting is tomorrow at noon. They're voting on the lawsuit. And one more thing, Travis has been calling all your subcontractors, telling them anyone who works with you will be blacklisted from Caldwell projects permanently. After he left, I sat there, feeling the walls close in. My phone started ringing with panicked calls from electricians and plumbers. I'd been counting on. They couldn't afford to lose Whitman's business, they said. They were sorry. I'd expected Travis to fight back, but not like this. He was trying to cut me off at the knees. Without reliable subcontractors, I couldn't deliver on the promises I'd made to my clients. By evening, I'd lost commitments from nearly every specialty contractor I needed. My carefully laid plans were unraveling. I was going to have to find new subcontractors, possibly from outside the area, at much higher costs. Costs that would eat up most of my projected profits. Travis hadn't just pushed back. He'd found my vulnerability and exploited it perfectly. He wasn't just trying to save Caldwell and Sons anymore. He was trying to destroy JW Buildworks before it could even get started. And I had to admit, he was doing a damn good job of it. The next morning, I drove out to see my father. I hadn't been to my parents' house since all this began. Their place sat on 5 acres outside of town, the first real purchase Dad made when the company started taking off in the late 80s. He'd always said a man in construction should have land where he can see the horizon. Mom answered the door. Her face was tight with worry, but she hugged me hard and led me through to the back porch where Dad was sitting, looking out over the property. Henry, he said, not turning around. His voice sounded older than I remembered. Dad. I sat down in the chair next to him. For a while, we just sat there in silence. Finally, he spoke. Your brother tells me you're trying to sink the company. That's not what I'm doing? Then what would you call it? I measured my words carefully. I'm building something of my own after Travis pushed me out. Dad turned to look at me, his eyes sharp. Despite everything, you couldn't work it out. You two were supposed to carry this forward together. Tell that to Travis. He's the one who fired me in front of the entire board. And now you're taking our biggest clients. They chose to come with me. I didn't steal anything. Dad sighed heavily. The situation's worse than you know, son. Something in his tone made me pay closer attention. What do you mean? He looked out toward the horizon again. The company's not as solid as everyone thinks. Last few years, we've been overextended. Overextended. How we've been profitable every quarter. On paper, sure. But Travis has been borrowing a lot using future projects as collateral. Those 5 big clients you took, their projects were already factored into loans. I felt like I'd been punched. How much are we talking about enough that without those projects, the bank might call everything due? Why would he do that? We've always been conservative with debt. Dad's face clouded. He had ideas, big expansion plans, new markets. He convinced the board. It was the future. He paused. I should have paid closer attention. Before I retired, the pieces were starting to fit together. Travis's strange behavior over the past year, the new consultants, the private meetings. He hadn't just been planning to edge me out. He'd been leveraging the company to the hilt for his grand vision. And now those loans were in danger because I'd taken the clients. Those loans were based on, "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Because you need to understand what's really at stake. It's not just your brother's pride or your hurt feelings. If Caldwell and Sons goes under, a lot of people get hurt. Employees, suppliers, your mother and me for that matter. I felt the weight of it settle on my shoulders. What about the lawsuit? Uncle Pete says the board is voting today. They are. Travis is pushing hard for it. And what do you think they should do? Dad turned to me, his eyes tired. I think a lawsuit would just finish off whatever's left of this family. As I drove back to my office, my mind was racing. I'd been so focused on Travis's betrayal, I hadn't seen the bigger picture. He hadn't fired me because he wanted all the glory. He'd fired me because I was the cautious one, the one who would have questioned his risky expansion plans. My leaving with those clients wasn't just embarrassing him, it was exposing the house of cards he'd built. No wonder he was fighting so dirty. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I'd wanted justice, not destruction. I'd wanted to build something of my own, not tear down everything my family had built. But Travis had put us all in an impossible position. By the time I reached my office, I knew I needed to find a third way, one that protected my new company without destroying Caldwell and Sons completely. I cancelled all my meetings that afternoon and called Ben Harding from Crestwell Properties. "Ben, I need a favor," I said when he picked up a big one. "After all the times you've pulled our projects back from the brink, name it, I need you to meet with Travis. Hear him out. Maybe even consider splitting your projects between my new company and Caldwell." There was a pause on the line. "You're asking me to give business back to the company that just fired you, the one that's currently threatening to sue you." "It's complicated," I said. "Family usually is." "That's asking a lot, Henry. I know it is, but I'm asking anyway." After Ben reluctantly agreed, I made similar calls to my other 4 major clients. Each conversation was difficult. They were confused, some even angry. They'd chosen to follow me because they trusted me, and now I was sending mixed signals. But eventually, they all agreed to at least meet with Travis. Next, I called my lawyer and asked her to draft a proposal. I needed it by morning. Finally, I called Travis directly. "I'm surprised you picked up," I said. When he answered, "I've been trying to reach you for days." His voice was strained. "I know about the loans, Travis. Dad told me everything." A long silence then. "So now you understand why this is so serious?" "I do, and I have a proposal. Meet me tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. My office." "Why would I do that?" "Because I've asked all 5 clients to reconsider working with Caldwell. They've agreed to meet with you." Another pause. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just be there." I hung up before he could ask more questions. That night, I barely slept. I kept going over the plan, looking for flaws, for ways it could backfire. By morning, my eyes were burning, but my mind was clear. Travis arrived exactly at 7 o'clock, looking like he hadn't slept either. He was wearing one of his expensive suits, but his eyes were bloodshot, his usual confidence nowhere to be seen. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "Not sitting, why offer to help after what I did?" "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Dad, for the employees, for the family name on the building." He finally sat. "So what's this proposal?" I slid a document across the desk. JW Buildworks and Caldwell and Sons enter a strategic partnership. We divide the 5 major clients between us, 3 for Caldwell, 2 for me. That should keep the bank happy while giving me enough to build on. He skimmed the document, frowning. This says I have to step down as CEO. It does. Dad comes back temporarily, while the board finds a new CEO, someone neutral. And what about the expansion plans put on hold indefinitely? The company needs to get its financial house in order. First, Travis leaned back, studying me. So you get your revenge after all. This isn't about revenge. It's about saving what's worth saving and letting go of the rest. And if I refuse, then I keep all 5 clients. You default on your loans, and Caldwell and Sons likely doesn't survive your choice. He stared at the document for a long time. I could almost see him calculating, weighing options, looking for a way out. The Travis I knew would never accept these terms, but the Travis sitting across from me now wasn't the same man who'd fired me with a smirk. This one looked beaten, cornered. The board won't like this, he said finally. The board will like bankruptcy even less. He picked up a pen, hesitated, then signed the document. As he stood to leave, he looked at me directly. For the first time, I really thought I was doing the right thing. You know, for the company, I didn't answer. Some things don't deserve a response. After he left, I called Dad to tell him what had happened. Then I called the clients to let them know the new arrangement. By noon, it was done. Not the outcome I'd planned for. Not a clean victory, but something sustainable, something that could work. Sometimes that's the best you can hope for 6 months later. I stood on the construction site of the Crestwell office complex. The steel framework was rising against the sky. Concrete floors already poured for the first 3 levels. My project, my company across town, Caldwell and Sons, was still standing. Dad had come back temporarily, just long enough to stabilize things. The new CEO, a no-nonsense woman with 30 years in construction management, was slowly rebuilding the company's reputation and financial footing. Travis had left Nebraska altogether, took a job with a development firm in Colorado. We hadn't spoken since the day he signed my proposal. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see Ben Harding approaching, hard hat in hand. "Looking good, Jake," he said, surveying the progress. "On schedule 2 weeks ahead, actually." He nodded approvingly, not surprised. "That's why we followed you?" He hesitated. "You'll find this interesting," Ben said after a pause. "Your brother reached out to me a few days ago." That made me pause mid-step. "Travis? What for?" He wanted to clear the air, said things didn't go the way he'd planned. Told me he underestimated what you brought to the table. I didn't respond immediately, wasn't sure if I believed it. He also mentioned he's starting something new out in Denver. Asked if I had any contacts out that way. "And do you?" Ben shrugged a few. I gave him some names. He looked at me carefully. "That okay with you?" I thought about it. "Yeah, it's okay." We walked the site together, discussing timelines and material deliveries. Normal construction talk. But my mind kept drifting back to Travis, to his apology, to the fact that he was trying to build something new, just like I was. Maybe that was the Caldwell way after all. Not tearing each other down, but building, creating something solid that would last. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was a start. 1 year to the day after I was fired, I parked outside the Caldwell and Sons headquarters. I hadn't been back since I walked out of that board meeting. The building looked the same, but the company wasn't. They downsized, significantly focused on smaller, more manageable projects. No more grand expansion plans. Dad was fully retired again. The new CEO, Diane, was making steady progress, rebuilding what Travis had almost destroyed. I'd kept my end of the bargain. JW Buildworks stayed focused on our 2 major clients not poaching any more business from Caldwell. We'd grown, but carefully, sustainably, currently 38 employees and a solid reputation for quality work. I wasn't there for a meeting or a contract negotiation. I was there because Dad had asked me to come, said there was something he wanted me to see. Inside, a few familiar faces nodded at me. Some offered quiet smiles. Others looked away, still unsure where I stood. The air was thick with unspoken history as I stepped into the elevator. At the top floor, the doors opened to a silence that felt strangely peaceful. Dad stood near the window, hands behind his back, staring out at the skyline. He turned as I walked in, gestured to the table without a word. Spread out were blueprints, old and new, Caldwell legacies and future visions. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Maybe it's time we stop trying to rebuild what's lost." I sat down slowly, eyes scanning the plans. "And start building something new?" He nodded. "Together, if you're ready." We didn't bring up Travis. There was no need. Some bridges burn for good reason, but that doesn't mean you stop crossing rivers. As I walked back out through those doors, this time, it wasn't the end. It was a beginning.